look like this when other people did it. What am I doing wrong? Oh boy. I love Christmas decorating, and one of my favorite things to do is to switch it up year to year. Some years I'm feeling more rustic farmhouse, while others I'm feeling a bit more kid-like with bright colors. And then there's those years where I'm just all about the opulence. And one of the best ways I found to achieve this is to head to the local thrift store where I know you'll be able to find quality items that with just a few inexpensive and simple touches, I know you can easily make them look more high-end while getting them to fit into your theme and color scheme. Time to get our DIY on. One of my thrift store finds was this sled. I loved the holly design on the side and the shape of the sled. I liked the rungs and I loved that little rope detail along the edges. I wasn't a fan of that bright green and silver combination though, so we're going to change that up. And at $4.99 with my 20% off coupon, this ended up only costing me about $4 because I had all of the supplies I needed to make it over already on hand in my craft stash. So to start with, I just went in with some white chalk paint and gave the entire sled a painting over. I didn't do the rungs though, I just did the inside and outside of the sled. Now you could totally use some flat white spray paint or some white chalk paint in the spray paint version if you wanted to. I wasn't quite sure at this point what I was going to do with those rungs, so I decided just to hand paint it. It took about 3 coats. Next, using a small stippling brush and some black chalk paint, I just went in and painted those rungs, pouncing it up and down, giving that paint as much texture as possible. I wanted this to look a bit like wrought iron. Now the rungs were a tiny bit ornate, and because of that there were some areas that were really hard to get at with that stenciling brush. Even though it was small, it was a bit too puffy. So I just went in with a small detail brush and some of that black chalk paint, and I just got any of the areas that I couldn't quite get with the stenciling brush. Now somehow I missed recording this, but I also pounced on a little bit of gold paint onto those rungs just to give them a bit more interest and a bit of sparkle. Then once the rungs had a chance to dry, I went in with a little bit of antiquing wax on a big fluffy stenciling brush and just applied it all over that design on the side of the sled. Then using a makeup sponge, I wiped away any of the excess Art Minds antiquing wax, and then using a damp rag, I went in and wiped away any of that antiquing wax that I didn't want sitting on it. So I really wanted it to be focused on the detailing on the side and have that dark color make the design really pop. But I still wanted that sled to read as white. Now the inside, back and front of the sled didn't have any detailing. So Dollar Tree has these cheap stenciling brushes. They're not really great for stenciling, but they can work well when you're doing sort of painting techniques. And I found that if you just dip it a little bit in some antiquing wax and then use that to create streaks on a painted surface, you can really create a faux wood look that I think worked really well in this DIY. Now there was some detailing on the sides of the sled because the motif is sort of popped out on the sides there. So again, I went in with some of that antiquing wax, put it all over the design, used my makeup sponge to spread that out, and then wiped it down with a damp face cloth until I got an antique look I was happy with. I'd purchased these twinkling lights from Dollar Tree, so I just used a little bit of hot glue to glue that battery pack to the side of the sled where it would be easiest for me to click it on and off. Last fall, I'd made this beautiful pine cone wreath. Actually, I'll leave a link to it in the description below. But I had these leftover pine cones that I'd slowly baked in the oven, and they were just sitting in a plastic bag in my craft room, so I decided to use those in this DIY as well. I also had this berry garland that I got from Dollar Tree last Christmas, and I decided to wrap those around the pine cones along with those twinkling lights. I also had these Dollar Tree mistletoe stems in my stash, so I just disassembled those and stuck the individual berries and frosted greenery in different places amongst the pine cones. And I decided last minute that I wanted this DIY to smell as good as it looks. So I had this package that I bought of essential oils from Marshall's. I picked out my favorite scent and then just added a few drops of those to the pine cones. We have our first thrifted DIY complete. For our next thrifted Christmas DIY, I found these oversized Christmas baubles at my local thrift store. Now, I ended up only buying 2 out of the 3 because the third pack just didn't have all that much texture built into the baubles itself. These, however, did, and I love their shape and texture. I'm just not feeling those colors. Now, if you've come on over from another one of the collabs, welcome. And if you've been on my channel for a while now, you'll know that I'm all about the gold this year. I had this can of Rust-Oleum antique gold spray paint, and so I decided to head on out to the garage where I gave each of these at least, well, the gold ones took about 1 coat, the rest of them took anywhere between 2 or 3 depending on how dark of a color it was. Now we can't stop there because that's just boring. So once the baubles had had a chance to dry, go in with a little bit of antiquing wax and one of those big fat fluffy Dollar Tree stenciling brushes and apply that antiquing wax all over your Christmas bauble. Then using a nice thick brush, I'm using an old wax brush I have on hand, but any fluffy brush will do, just soften and blend in that antiquing wax. Then while that antiquing wax is still a little bit damp, go in with a little bit of gold paint. I'm using Folk Art Majestic Gold. I love the thick texture of this paint. I'm going to show you why it's so fabulous in a bit. I can't find this exact color on Amazon, but I could find just their Folk Art Gold, so I have linked that in the description. And again, using that Dollar Tree thick stenciling brush, just apply the gold paint all over the ornament, and then again here I'm using that fluffy brush I was talking about to blend that all in and just soften the look. Now this next step is totally optional, but I was going for the most texture possible. So I went in with a bit more of that Folk Art Gold paint and applied it really thickly in different areas all around the ornament, creating as much texture with that stenciling brush as I possibly could. And since I know the word for them now, I wanted those ornament caps to also really pop. So I just went in with a little bit of Copper Art Minds chalk paint that I've had for like 5 years, and using a little paintbrush just applied it to the ornament caps, and then I just went in with a little bit more of that Folk Art Gold paint, and using that fluffy brush just again softened everything. Now if you're going for a more matte look, stop here. I wanted these to really shine, so I headed back out to the garage with a can of Rust-Oleum High Gloss Clear Top Coat and gave each of the ornaments a quick spray. Christmas thrift flip, say that 5 times fast. Christmas thrift flip done. I just want to take a quick pause from the DIYs to remind you that this is an open collab that I'm co-hosting with I'm Merely Melissa. If you haven't checked out her channel yet, you really need to do so. She has tons of videos with great DIY ideas. And there's several creators participating in this open collab, so make sure that you pop on into that description box below and you can find all the links to all their channels there. I actually found this corbel a few thrift shops ago. I found 2 of them and I made a wood lantern with one. It's actually turned out really nice. I'll link it also in the description below and above. Now, what I like about this corbel is that it's got a gold paint underneath, and again, I'm all about that gold this Christmas, and it has a hole in the top, so I knew exactly what this was going to be. On one of my recent thrift store shops, I found these 3 faux pine Christmas trees in burlap sacks, and I'm going to use a few of these sprigs in this DIY. Never one to throw anything away. I had a little bit of floral foam left over, and I just cut it down large enough to fit into the hole, and then popped those sprigs into that floral foam into that hole. Pop a little moss into that hole to cover up your floral foam, and there you go. Our 3rd Christmas DIY complete, and I just love the way this looks, and I didn't really have to do much to it at all. With my 20% off coupon, they were asking just a little over $3 for this wooden carved out Christmas tree candle holder. Now, whoever had owned this previously had obviously used real candles inside of it, and so there was some wax at the bottom and some dirt stuck to that wax. So I just used my heat gun to warm up that wax and then wiped it away with a Kleenex, and it cleaned up really easily. I was still planning on using this as a candle holder, so I decided to use some more of that gold spray paint that we have from our Christmas baubles, and I sprayed the inside of the wooden box, giving it a couple of coats. Now, the Christmas colors I'm decorating our home with this year are aged gold and this light green color that's super popular. It doesn't show up that well on film, and honestly, I had thoughts about this paint. I had high expectations for a folk art paint because I've had so much luck with other ones, but I found this paint in particular to be very thin. It didn't have much pigment. It took 3 or even 4 coats just to cover this wood box. In the end, I was happy with the way it turned out. I love the color, but folk art, I expect better from you, and if you guys have any suggestions of a brand of paint that comes in this color that you've had more success with, please leave it in the comments below. Finished it off by giving the edges and the sides a really quick sanding just to give it that nice distressed look. Popped in a battery operated candle, et voila! We have ourselves a rustic and charming Christmas candle. On one of my more recent shopping trips, I found this gold candle stand at the thrift store and brought it home. I love its shape. I'm just not really feeling that gold color. It's just screaming a bit 1980s brass for my taste. So I decided to order some Rub and Buff from Amazon. Now to get Rub and Buff in Canada, it costs a small fortune. And honestly, again, I have thoughts. I'd watched a few videos of other people who had used this product before, and everybody seemed really thrilled with it. So I was super excited to try this out, even willing to pay the exorbitant price it cost me to get it delivered. However, I wasn't as happy with it as I was expecting. I don't know if I did something wrong, if while you're watching me rub and buff this antique gold on and you see I'm doing something wrong and there's a technique that I just don't know about, please share it in the comments below. But I found that this ended up really streaky. It took me at least 3 coats, letting it dry for an entire night in between each coat, and still in the end, I wasn't really happy with the final look. It just keeps coming off. This isn't working the way I thought it was going to. Rub and buff. No, it's not rubbing or buffing. Oh boy. It's okay, I like it. It's just I'm not convinced I couldn't have done better with paint. But if you love this product and you have some thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. This next DIY is one of my favorites, and it's also the easiest. I found this light green ceramic pot at the thrift store, and it really worked with that feel that I was going for and that color I was going for this year, so I bought it and brought it home. When I was at Home Depot buying that gold spray paint, I came across these mini spruce trees, and they were only about $7.99, so I decided to buy one because I knew it would be the perfect addition to this pot. And the tag said that the zone was compatible where I live. For the near future, I'm actually going to just leave it in its pot, and I'm going to add some stones inside of the ceramic pot, then place the tree in the center after I remove its wrapping, and then place stones around it, holding it in the center. This will allow me to water the tree during the Christmas months. I'll repot it after Christmas, letting it grow larger, and then in the spring I'm going to pop this little beauty in the backyard. I didn't want the container and the the stones to show, so I just went in with a little bit of moss and covered that up. And here we go, the finished look. Tell me which one of these DIYs was your favorite. If you enjoyed those, make sure you subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. If you hit that notification bell, it'll let you know the next time I upload. Oh, and you might enjoy these.